When we're talking about anti-Semitism and when we're talking about Jews, it's important to understand that Jews aren't just a religious group. We're also a people. We're a people who have cultural practices and history and languages. People can practice or relate to their Judaism in many different ways, but it's not only through religious practice. It's not only through going to synagogue. It's not only through faith. It's also through community, through connecting to the land of Israel. It's much broader than just a religious group. I think it's important, first of all, to understand what anti-Semitism is. Anti-Semitism is the hatred of Jews as Jews. And it's often useful to think about it as a giant conspiracy theory, that at its root, anti-Semitism sees Jews as having outsized power over world economies, over politics, and over other systems. And that's usually how anti-Semitism manifests in the world. So in some cases, anti-Semitism manifested as Jews not being able to own land, Jews being pushed into certain professions. Sometimes Jews didn't have political rights or the right to do Jewish practice. And of course, in some of the worst cases, Jews were murdered, expelled, and forced to convert to Christianity. And that happened across Europe and to some degree in the Arab world. So the actual term anti-Semitism, which is kind of a strange term, developed in the 19th century in Germany when Jews were starting to get more political and social rights. And the idea was that Jews were a Semitic race that came from someplace else, specifically the land of Israel, and were now infecting Germany and Europe, and that it was very important to understand who they were, because the more that Jews assimilated, the more terrifying it was to people who wanted to be anti-Semitic in what they thought was the most scientific way possible. Anti-Semitism often rises in times of political, economic, and social upheaval because Jews have often been a scapegoat in certainly Christian and sometimes also Muslim societies. And so when there's a lot of economic, social, political upheaval, it's very easy to blame it on a group that is considered an outsider rather than to look at the actual roots of why the economy or the political system is in tatters. When somebody is targeted by anti-Semitism or observes somebody else being targeted, it's important to call it out, not to think it's not such a big deal, we don't have to deal with it right now, but to name it and to explain it, because often people don't even know what anti-Semitism is. They don't even know what stereotypes are out there about Jews. And they don't even recognize what they're saying as being anti-Semitic. So it's important to educate in that moment. In fact, speech often doesn't stay as speech. It's very easy to say, well, those are just words, they can't hurt. But of course, words sometimes prompt people to later take violent action. And so it's important to shut down hateful speech when it's just speech so that it doesn't then encourage people to move toward actions that are even more dangerous and deadly. When we talk about creating a diverse society, we can't just talk about Christians and Jews. We have to talk about other traditions, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. Because if we're going to create a society that is safe for everybody, where everybody can have the same rights, we have to make sure that it is really a place that everybody, no matter what your tradition is, can have the same rights. It's not going to be safe for Jews or for any other minority unless it's also safe for all minorities.